Ah, yes, indeed. It's that time once again for another end of the world scenario. Whammo! Waiter, there's a mountain in my soup. Whether you call it the big one, the Great Exterminator, Lucifer's Hammer, or an Extinction Level Event, there's much to be said about big chunks of space rock slamming into the Earth. One thing's for sure, however, it happened so many times before that it's only likely that it'll happen again. It all comes about within moments. Suddenly there's a big fiery ball in the sky, just for a few seconds, and then impact. The atmosphere will be on fire. A huge column of fire and debris towers up miles into the sky. Hundreds of thousands of die instantaneously. For thousands of miles around, everyone outdoors is incinerated. People nearby simply evaporate. The impact sends out a shockwave around the globe, just like a stone thrown into a pool makes a circle of waves. But this wave rolls through the Earth's crust itself, causing death and destruction everywhere. There are massive earthquakes, huge tsunamis, volcanoes just popping open, millions die, cities are shaken into oblivion. On the opposite side of our planet, the waves of destruction slam into each other again, causing the Earth's crust to tower up, forming a massive mountain ridge within seconds. And that's just the beginning. As the terror and the seas start to calm down and the fires extinguish, there's more to deal with. The huge black clouds of debris that are thrown up into the stratosphere from the impact site. The debris spreads throughout the stratosphere, covering the Earth with a thick blanket of burnt carbon, dust, and debris. The sun is blackened. For months or even years to come, the world is covered in darkness, the sun being no more than a vague bud of light in a pitch-black sky. Temperatures drop about 20 to 40 or even 50 degrees everywhere. The Earth's surface freezes. Plants cannot produce oxygen anymore by photosynthesis, and they die. Animals relying on plants die too. And we, relying on both animals and plants, are in some big trouble. Oh, there are a few pockets of people still hang on. They're hiding out in bunkers or in caves. They hold on for years or as long as the supply of tin cans can last. But when they return to the surface after the endless winter night, they'll find their planet is turned into a barren, lifeless sheet of land, only with some deserted ruins reminding us of what one once was. Sure, in the end, the sun returns and the temperatures start rising again, so there may be a new beginning for mankind after all. Think again, the odds run against such optimism. The only thing alive is bacteria and mosses, and if we're lucky, some insects, rodents, and fish. With luck, civilization is only thrown back into the Stone Age. More likely, however, is that humanity has become extinct. Well, let me just give you a brief history of meteors going whammo. Oddly, until 20 years ago, no one took meteors quite serious. It was widely believed that those mean chunks of rock and ice zoom across the galaxy and are not a real threat to our planet. A comet entering our atmosphere would instantly burn up, and that would be it. That all changed, though, in 1978 when two paleontologists, Louis and Walter Alvarez, went to Italy to study the so-called KT barrier. Digging around in the Apennine Mountains, father and son Alvarez suddenly realized something was extraordinary must have happened. Everywhere on Earth, the KT barrier is marked by a thin layer of iridium in the ground. Iridium being a rare chemical substance that is mostly found only in meteorites. It began to dawn on Lewis and Walter that dinosaurs didn't just die out because of some evolutionary reason. The dinosaurs were simply squashed by huge meteorites. The killer meteorite must have slammed into our planet 65 million years ago, and it must have been an event much like the one described above. There was a long, mean period of darkness where it rained iridium all over the world. Life on our planet was almost completely wiped out. All the plants and animals, bigger than the blade of grass, became extinct. Just to picture that. No wonder the Alvarez coined the killer meteorite the Great Exterminator. For decades to come, the exterminator theory was highly controversial. If a big meteor enough to kill all the dinosaurs really went boom on our planet, surely you would have noticed an impact crater somewhere. Then, in 1991, NASA satellites indeed spotted the crater. It was a huge scar known as the Cenote Ring underneath the Mexican peninsula of Yucatan, almost impossible to detect by eye because of the millions of years of erosion and tectonic movement. Judging by the impact crater, scientists calculated the Great Exterminator must have been the size of a mountain. It hammered the world of those poor dinosaurs with the impact force of about 100 million megatons of TNT. That's the equivalent of 5 billion atomic bombs. By now, some people are really starting to get itchy about meteors. But next came the impact of the comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 on Jupiter. For the first time in history, man could see what actually happens when a colossal comet starts to mess around with your planet. July 1994, the meteor slammed into Jupiter's atmosphere, snapped it to pieces, bombarded the planet for days. Huge balls of fire and dust rose up from the planet's surface, and a breeze of darkened parts of Jupiter's atmosphere for weeks. The biggest impact crater carved out by a piece of meteor, known as the Hale-Bopp, had a size no smaller than the entire Earth. By now, everyone realized the danger of the meteor suddenly ending the world is as real as it can be. It could happen next year or next month, and well, it could also happen tomorrow. From those days on, attention on meteors grew and grew. Were the dinosaurs just unfortunate? The troublesome answer is a loud and clear no. As a matter of fact, the meteor that killed the dino wasn't the first big piece of rock hitting our planet, not even the biggest. Scientists began to realize, for instance, just over 4.5 billion years ago, when our planet was still very young, an enormous body hit the Earth with such unimaginable force that our planet literally broke apart. A huge piece of the Earth was launched into space, and you can still see that lump of Earth when you look out your window. The debris rolled up into a ball, and today that is what we call the moon. The next massive space attack came 500 million years later. Our planet was bombarded so heavily with asteroids that the entire crust actually melted. That would explain why the oldest rocks on Earth are only 3.9 billion years old, while the planet itself is 5 billion years old. And then there was another apocalyptic event. Some 590 million years ago, one day a meteorite of incredible proportions slammed hard into what is now South Australia, digging a crater about 4 kilometers deep and some 40 kilometers wide, currently known as Lake Akaraman. Within seconds, the whole thing vaporized into a huge firestorm. The impact was so devastating, it must have created massive earthquakes and 100-meter-high tsunamis, even hundreds of kilometers away. Oh boy. Actually, it literally rained big ones on our little planet as recently as January 2002. Geologists discovered a huge impact crater out of the Australian coast, no less than 120 kilometers wide. The meteor that carved out the crater slammed into our planet 360 million years ago, wiping out 85% of all the species at the time. And in 2001, Norwegian researchers suddenly realized that their coast had once been the scene of a similar event. A huge meteor went kaboom over Norway 150 million years ago. Speaking in geological terms, right before the Great Exterminator, the explosion slammed a 40-kilometer-wide bump in the seabed of the Barents Sea, and the so-called Moldjanier crater. Researchers still wonder how it was possible that anything survived this. Oh, and even when humanity was around, the meteors kept on hitting us. For example, according to some researchers, the legendary floods of Deucalion, the Sumerian Gilgamesh epos, and the biblical deluge may very well have been caused by big comets plunging into the sea somewhere. More recent, in 1490 AD, the city of Qingyang in central China was the scene of some weird disaster. The event was recorded in at least 10 ancient textbooks, all claiming the event killed many thousands of people as it rained stones and fire. The likely cause, an asteroid as big as a modest skyscraper going kaboom in the Earth's atmosphere. On June 30th of 1908, a loud explosion shook the village of Tsunamis in Middle Siberia. Local inhabitants saw a huge blast of fire in the sky. There was a sudden temperature rise and a blazing forest fire, lighting up the whole horizon. No less than 200,000 square miles of forest were devastated. As we know now, a 12-story building-sized piece of rock hit the atmosphere over Siberia and exploded at a height of some 8 kilometers. The energy set free at the event was the equivalent of 15 megatons of TNT, or 1,000 atomic bombs. So it's no pessimistic estimate that our planet can bounce back into a freaky piece of space rock yet again. Cosmologists estimate the extinction-type comet hits the Earth once every 20 million years. The odds for a smaller Tungskat-type impact are much higher. On the average, this kind of thing happens once every 300 years. Of course, the effects of a meteor impact depends on the place where it hits on the Earth. The meteor that killed the dinosaurs, for example, hit a soil loaded with sulfuric rock, which enormously boosted the comet's devastating effect. Had it hit the planet's surface hundreds of miles westward, it would have plunged into the ocean, and the dinosaurs probably would have survived. On the other hand, if the Tungskat-type meteor happens to hit an inhabited area, it will definitely wipe it off the face of the Earth entirely. Considering that some 10% of our planet is inhabited, you could assume that once every 3,000 years a meteorite will destroy an inhabited area. Meanwhile, the people at NASA trying to reassure us by claiming that they keep an open eye to the sky. The message they propagate is that a meteor that wants to hit our planet will surely be spotted in time and destroyed, whether it is by a nuclear bomb or a team of Bruce Willis like He-Man going out in the space shuttle. No offense, that's just pure propaganda. The harsh fact is that such a protection is far less reliable than NASA wants us to believe. For example, in March 1998, a big comet nearly hit us. Remarkably, no one saw it coming. This because it came straight at us. The thing was only visible as a tiny speck in the sky, not as a distinct moving object traversing the cosmos from left to right. Consequently, no one noticed until after it passed. For meteors, the meteor size would make a difference. 50 meters across meteor would equal to 15 megatons of TNT, would destroy a whole city. Chance of that happening, 1 to 300. 200 meters across, 100 megatons of TNT. It would destroy a whole continent. 1,000 meters across, equal to 100,000 megatons of TNT. That would take out half the world. Chance of that happening, 1 in 2 million. 10,000 meters across is equal to 100 million megatons of TNT. That's an extinction level event. Chance of that happening, 1 in 30,000. The Norwegian meteor, by the way, was 2 kilometers across. The meteor that carved out Lake Ackerman in Australia was 4 kilometers. The comet that killed the dinosaurs was 10 kilometers. The impact force also depends on the velocity of the object, which ranges roughly from 50,000 to 100,000 kilometers per hour. Well, then there's this eerie other type of comet, the eerie problem of the ice comet. Many comets, in fact, are just dirty snowballs made up of dust and ice. The problem is we can't really detect these comets because conventional equipment sees right through them. You can only spot an ice comet when it comes so close to the sun that it finally begins to melt. We'll recognize that one by its tail. But then, according to many critical astronomers, this will be much too late to take action. Besides, there are no reliable ways of getting rid of a comet racing right at us. Pleas for a kind of space shield protecting us from a big piece of rock have not yet even been raised by or have any political backing. And it's doubtful whether Bruce Willis is willing to go out and kill the big one if it's coming. Oh, and talking about big ones, in 2039, another huge comet will pass us by only some millions of kilometers. However, this estimate is not completely fireproof, for one thing, because comets are very sensitive to variations in trajectory. Here's what to do. Put on your best helmet and keep your fingers crossed.
You got people like this around you. Country's full of them now. People walking around all day long, every minute of the day, worried about everything. Worried about the air, worried about the water, worried about the soil. Worried about insecticides, pesticides, food additives, carcinogens. Worried about radon gas, worried about asbestos. Worried about saving endangered species. Let me tell you about endangered species, all right? Saving endangered species is just one more arrogant attempt by humans to control nature. It's arrogant meddling. It's what got us in trouble in the first place. Doesn't anybody understand that? Interfering with nature. Over 90%, way over 90% of all the species that have ever lived on this planet, are gone. They're extinct. We didn't kill them all. They just disappeared. That's what nature does. They disappear these days at the rate of 25 a day. And I mean regardless of our behavior. Irrespective of how we act on this planet, 25 species that were here today will be gone tomorrow. Let them go gracefully. Leave nature alone. Haven't we done enough? We're so self-important. So self-important. Everybody's going to save something now. Save the trees, save the bees, save the whales, save those snails. And the greatest arrogance of all, save the planet. What? Are these fucking people kidding me? Save the planet? We don't even know how to take care of ourselves yet. We haven't learned how to care for one another. We're going to save the fucking planet? I'm getting tired of that shit. Tired. I'm tired of fucking Earth Day. I'm tired of these self-righteous environmentalists, these white bourgeois liberals who think the only thing wrong with this country is there aren't enough bicycle paths. People trying to make the world safe for their Volvos. Besides, environmentalists don't give a shit about the planet. They don't care about the planet. Not in the abstract, they don't. Not in the abstract, they don't. You know what they're interested in? A clean place to live. Their own habitat. They're worried that someday in the future they might be personally inconvenienced. Narrow, unenlightened self-interest doesn't impress me. Besides, there is nothing wrong with the planet. Nothing wrong with the planet. The planet is fine. The people are fucked. Difference. The planet is fine. Compared to the people, the planet is doing great. It's been here 4.5 billion years. Did you ever think about the arithmetic? Planet has been here 4.5 billion years. We've been here, what, 100,000? Maybe 200,000? And we've only been engaged in heavy industry for a little over 200 years. 200 years versus 4.5 billion. And we have the conceit to think that somehow we're a threat? That somehow we're going to put in jeopardy this beautiful little blue-green ball that's just a-floating around the sun? The planet has been through a lot worse than us. Been through all kinds of things worse than us. Been through earthquakes, volcanoes, plate tectonics, continental drift, solar flares, sunspots, magnetic storms, the magnetic reversal of the poles, hundreds of thousands of years of bombardment by comets and asteroids and meteors, worldwide floods, tidal waves, worldwide fires, erosion, cosmic rays, recurring ice ages, and we think some plastic bags and some aluminum cans are going to make a difference? The planet isn't going anywhere. We are. We're going away. Pack your shit, folks. We're going away. And we won't leave much of a trace either. Thank God for that. Maybe a little styrofoam. Maybe. Little styrofoam. Planet will be here and we'll be long gone. Just another failed mutation. Just another closed-end biological mistake. An evolutionary cul-de-sac. The planet will shake us off like a bad case of fleas. A surface nuisance. You want to know how the planet's doing? Ask those people at Pompeii who are frozen into position from volcanic ash how the planet's doing. Want to know if the planet's all right? Ask those people in Mexico City or Armenia or 100 other places buried under thousands of tons of earthquake rubble if they feel like a threat to the planet this week. How about those people in Kilauea, Hawaii, who build their homes right next to an active volcano and then wonder why they have lava in the living room? The planet will be here for a long, long, long time after we're gone, and it will heal itself, it will cleanse itself, because that's what it does. It's a self-correcting system. The air and the water will recover, the earth will be renewed, and if it's true that plastic is not degradable, well, the planet will simply incorporate plastic into a new paradigm, the earth plus plastic. The earth doesn't share our prejudice towards plastic. Plastic came out of the earth. The earth probably sees plastic as just another one of its children. Could be the only reason the earth allowed us to be spawned from it in the first place. It wanted plastic for itself. Didn't know how to make it. Needed us. Could be the answer to our age-old philosophical question, why are we here? Plastic. Assholes. So, the plastic is here, our job is done, we can be phased out now, and I think that's really started already, don't you? I mean, to be fair, the planet probably sees us as a mild threat, something to be dealt with, and I'm sure the planet will defend itself in the manner of a large organism, like a beehive or an ant colony can muster a defense. I'm sure the planet will think of something. What would you do if you were the planet trying to defend against this pesky, troublesome species? Let's see, what might... viruses. Viruses might be good. They seem vulnerable to viruses. And viruses are tricky, always mutating and forming new strains whenever a vaccine is developed. Perhaps this first virus could be one that compromises the immune system of these creatures. Perhaps a human immunodeficiency virus, making them vulnerable to all sorts of other diseases and infections that might come along. And maybe it could be spread sexually, making them a little reluctant to engage in the act of reproduction. Well, that's a poetic note. And it's a start. And I can dream, can't I? See, I don't worry about the little things. Bees, trees, whales, snails. I think we're part of a greater wisdom than we will ever understand. A higher order. Call it what you want. Know what I call it? The big electron. The big electron. Whoa. 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 It doesn't punish. It doesn't reward. It doesn't judge at all. It just is. And so are we. For a little while. Thanks for being here with me for a little while tonight. Thank you. Thank you very much.